The champagne glass tilted slowly, deliberately, and 15-year-old Bradley Thornton III watched with a twisted smile as the golden liquid splashed directly onto the face of a 2-year-old baby girl. The toddler screamed, her tiny hands clawing at her burning eyes, her flower headband falling to the marble floor. And then came the laughter. Victor Thornton's booming cackle echoed through the ballroom. His wife Cynthia raised her phone, filming, giggling like she'd just witnessed the funniest joke of the season. "Finally," she crowed, "someone put that woman in her place." But they didn't know. None of them understood. They had just poured alcohol on the daughter of the one woman who held their entire empire in her hands. Before we continue, comment below what city you're watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you absolutely cannot miss. The champagne arced through the air like liquid gold under the crystal chandeliers. Bradley Thornton III held the empty glass with the casual arrogance of a boy who had never heard the word no in his entire privileged life. His prep school friends had their phones raised, recording their laughter already bubbling up in anticipation. "Welcome to our world, welfare baby," Bradley announced, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. The champagne hit 2-year-old Grace Richardson directly in the face. The baby's scream shattered the elegant atmosphere of the Thornton Foundation gala like a rock through glass. Grace's tiny hands flew to her eyes, clawing desperately at the burning alcohol. Her flower headband tumbled to the marble floor. Her emerald dress, carefully chosen to match her mother's gown, was instantly soaked. "Mama!" The shriek tore from Grace's throat. "Mama, it hurts! It hurts!" Maia. Richardson felt her daughter's pain before she fully understood what had happened. One moment she had been accepting congratulations from a tech investor Grace balanced happily on her hip. The next moment, her baby was screaming champagne, dripping from her braids, her eyes squeezed shut in agony. Then came the laughter. Victor Thornton's laugh was unmistakable. It was the laugh of a man who had crushed competitors, destroyed careers, and never once faced consequences. Deep and resonant, it rolled across the ballroom like thunder. "That's my boy," Victor bellowed, slapping his knee. "That's my boy right there." Cynthia Thornton had her phone raised, still recording. Her 3-carat diamond earring swayed as she giggled. "Oh, Bradley, you're absolutely wicked. But honestly, that child probably needed cleaning anyway. Lord knows what kind of environment she comes from." The words hit Maia like a physical blow. Around her, the crowd's reactions split violently. Some guests gasped, stepping backward, their faces masks of horror. Others, the Thorntons' inner circle. The old money families who had known Victor since prep school laughed along, raising their glasses in mock salute. "Someone get that woman a towel," one socialite drawled. "She's dripping on the Carrara marble." More laughter. Grace was sobbing uncontrollably now, her tiny body shaking against her mother's chest. "Mama, my eyes hurt so bad." "I know, baby." Maia's voice was barely a whisper. "Mama's here. Mama's got you." Bradley Thornton stepped closer, emboldened by his parents' approval, by the laughter of their social circle, by 15 years of learning that wealth meant immunity. His friends lowered their phones slightly, suddenly uncertain, but Bradley's confidence only grew. "What's wrong?" he sneered, looking directly at Maia. "Cat got your tongue, or maybe you're just not used to real champagne. This bottle probably costs more than your monthly rent." Someone in the crowd actually applauded. Victor Thornton was wiping tears of laughter from his eyes. "Oh, let her be, Bradley. She's clearly overwhelmed. These charity cases aren't used to our kind of events." "Victor, please." An older woman nearby, Eleanor Ashworth, a longtime family friend, touched his arm with obvious discomfort. "The child is crying. Perhaps we should..." "Should what, Eleanor?" Victor's voice hardened instantly. "Apologize for what? A little champagne never hurt anyone. That baby will survive. Her mother, on the other hand..." He let the threat hang in the air. Maia still hadn't moved. She stood frozen, her daughter's tears soaking into her shoulder, champagne dripping from her own face, surrounded by 1,000 pairs of eyes. Some pitying, some amused. some simply curious to see what the black woman would do next. She could feel them waiting, waiting for her to scream, waiting for her to cry, waiting for her to give them the angry black woman stereotype they could dismiss and mock. She would not give them that satisfaction. "Grace, baby," Maia whispered, her lips against her daughter's ear. "I need you to hold on to Mama, okay? Hold tight. It hurts, Mama. I know it does. But Mama's going to make it better. Mama's going to fix everything." A waiter approached, hesitantly offering a cloth napkin. Maia accepted it without looking at him, gently dabbing her daughter's swollen eyes. The white linen came away stained with champagne and tears. "Security," Victor called out, snapping his fingers imperiously. "Someone get this woman a car. Clearly she's not equipped for this kind of occasion. Perhaps in the future she should stick to events more suited to her circumstances." Cynthia nodded vigorously. "And honestly, who brings a toddler to an evening gala? It shows such poor judgment. No wonder Bradley reacted the way he did." Reacted. The single word cut through the noise like a blade. Maia's voice was quiet, controlled, but something in her tone made the nearby conversation stop mid-sentence. Bradley's smirk flickered. "He reacted," Maia repeated, turning slowly to face the Thorntons. Her movements were deliberate, almost ceremonial. "A 15-year-old boy pours alcohol into a 2-year-old baby's eyes, and you call that a reaction?" Victor's smile tightened. "Now listen here." "No." The word stopped him cold. "You listen, Mr. Thornton." Maia's voice hadn't risen even slightly, but it carried across the silent ballroom with absolute authority. "You and everyone in this room, you listen to me now." She began walking, not toward the exit as everyone expected, not toward the Thorntons as some feared. She walked toward the stage at the far end of the ballroom, where a podium had been set up for the evening's honoree speeches. Her heels clicked against the marble with each step. Champagne dripped from her ruined gown, leaving a trail behind her. Grace clung to her neck, still crying softly, still trembling. "What is she doing?" Cynthia whispered, her voice suddenly uncertain. "Someone stop her," Victor commanded. But nobody moved. The security guards exchanged confused glances. The event coordinator stood frozen, her clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield. Maia climbed the 3 stairs to the stage. She adjusted the microphone with one hand while supporting her daughter with the other. Then she looked out at the sea of wealthy faces staring up at her. The diamonds, the designer gowns, the Botox-smoothed expressions, and she smiled. It was not a warm smile. "Good evening," she said, her voice now amplified, filling every corner of the grand ballroom. "For those who don't know me, my name is Maia Richardson. I am the founder and CEO of SolarNova Technologies. I built my company from nothing, from a studio apartment and a second-hand laptop. Today, SolarNova is worth $2 billion and holds patents that will define the future of clean energy." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Board members from various corporations straightened in their seats. Several people pulled out their phones, suddenly realizing this moment would be important. "Tonight," Maia continued, her voice steady as bedrock, "I was supposed to announce a partnership, a $650 million strategic investment that would have transformed Thornton Energy Group into a global leader in sustainable innovation." Victor's face changed. The amusement drained away like water from a broken glass. "That deal," Maia said, "was scheduled to be signed tomorrow morning. The documents are ready. The terms are finalized. The press release is written." She paused, looking down at Grace, whose sobs had finally quieted to hiccups. "But in the last 5 minutes, I have learned everything I need to know about who the Thornton family really is." Complete silence. Not even the clink of a glass. Not even the rustle of fabric. "They pour alcohol on babies," Maia said, "and call it boys being boys. They laugh at a toddler's pain and call it entertainment. They raise their children to believe that wealth makes cruelty acceptable, that money exempts them from basic human decency. She lifted her gaze to meet Victor Thornton's eyes directly. Effective immediately, SolarNova Technologies is withdrawing from all negotiations with Thornton Energy Group. There will be no partnership. There will be no investment. There will be nothing. The ballroom erupted in gasps. Someone dropped a champagne glass, the crystal shattering against marble. Victor pushed through the crowd, his face purple with rage. "Now you wait just 1 minute. I'm not finished, Mr. Thornton." The power in her voice stopped him mid-stride, as effectively as if she had put her hand against his chest. Furthermore, Maia announced every dollar SolarNova would have invested in this partnership. All $650 million will now fund a new foundation, an organization dedicated to protecting children from families exactly like yours, from people who believe their bank accounts make them untouchable. Cynthia's phone clattered to the marble floor. She didn't even notice. Bradley had gone pale, his earlier bravado completely evaporated. He looked exactly like what he was, a scared child who had finally discovered that actions have consequences. "You can't do this." Victor's voice was strangled. "We have agreements. We have contracts. My lawyers will destroy you. Your lawyers will find that no binding contract was ever executed." Maia's response was ice. "I personally reviewed every document this afternoon. We were scheduled to sign tomorrow. That meeting is now permanently canceled." She shifted Grace to her other hip, her daughter's tear-streaked face now visible to the entire ballroom and to every phone camera recording. "One more thing." Maia's gaze swept across the crowd from face to face, missing no one. "Every phone in this room has captured what happened tonight. By tomorrow morning, the world will see what kind of people the Thorntons really are. And when your stock price collapses, when your board members abandon you, when your banking partners realize exactly who they've been doing business with, remember this moment." She leaned into the microphone. "Remember that your son's entertainment cost you everything." She stepped back from the podium. The silence stretched for 3 seconds. 5, 7. Then Maia Richardson walked off the stage, descended the stairs, and moved toward the exit with her daughter in her arms. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. No one spoke. No one tried to stop her. No one even breathed too loudly. As she passed Victor Thornton, she slowed just enough to whisper 4 words. "Check your stock tomorrow." Then she was gone, her champagne-stained gown disappearing through the gilded doors, leaving the Thornton family standing in the ruins of their reputation. Victor stood motionless for a long moment. Then he grabbed Bradley by the collar and dragged him toward a service corridor, Cynthia hurrying behind them. "Victor," Cynthia hissed. "People are watching. Let them watch," Victor snarled. He shoved Bradley through a door marked "Staff Only" and slammed it behind them. The corridor was empty, lit by harsh fluorescent lights that made Victor's face look gray and old. He pushed his son against the wall with enough force to knock the wind out of him. "Do you have any idea," Victor said through clenched teeth, "what you have just done?" "Dad, you laughed." Bradley's voice cracked between adolescence and childhood. "You and Mom both laughed. You always laugh when I—" "Not when it costs me $650 million. Victor's hand connected with his son's face before he could stop himself. The slap echoed in the empty corridor. "Victor!" Cynthia grabbed his arm. "For God's sake! That deal was everything!" Victor roared, ignoring his wife. "That deal was going to save us. Do you understand that? Do you have any idea what's happening with this company?" Bradley pressed his hand to his reddening cheek, tears streaming down his face. "I didn't know," he sobbed. "I didn't know she was anyone important. She's just a what?" Victor leaned in close, his breath hot against his son's face. "Say it. Say what you were going to say." Bradley's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. "That's what I thought." Victor released his son's collar, stepping back. "You've been raised to think you're better than everyone. Your mother and I taught you that. And tonight, it's going to destroy us." "Victor, you're being dramatic," Cynthia said, though her voice wavered. We can spin this. We can say she threatened Bradley that he was defending himself. She was holding a baby Cynthia, a 2-year-old baby, and our son poured champagne on that baby's face while we laughed and filmed it. Victor's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, and what little color remained in his face disappeared completely. "What?" Cynthia demanded. "What is it?" Victor held up the phone. A news alert glowed on the screen. Breaking: CEO cancels $650 deal after energy mogul's son pours champagne on her toddler. "It's only been 10 minutes, Cynthia whispered. "How is it already?" "Because everyone in that ballroom was recording," Victor snapped. "Because we live in a world where nothing stays private anymore. Because—" His phone buzzed again, and again, and again. Victor scrolled through the notifications, his face growing grayer with each one. Henderson's texting. "Board members are calling. 3 news networks want statements." He looked up at his wife, and for the first time in their 30-year marriage, Cynthia saw genuine fear in his eyes. "CNN is running the video on their front page." "Already?" "It has 2 million views. No, wait." He refreshed the screen. 3 million. It's climbing by the second. Bradley had slid down the wall to sit on the floor, his arms wrapped around his knees, crying silently. He looked nothing like the confident prep school bully who had poured champagne on a toddler 20 minutes ago. He looked broken. But Victor had no sympathy to spare. "Get up," he ordered his son. "We're going home, and you're not leaving your room until I figure out how to salvage this disaster." "Victor." Cynthia's voice was strange, hollow. "Victor, there's something I need to tell you." He turned to look at her, impatience radiating from every pore. "What now?" "The quarterly report, the one Henderson's been preparing." Cynthia's hands were shaking. "I saw a draft on your desk last week, the one you didn't know I saw." Victor went very still. "We're not just losing money, are we?" Cynthia's voice cracked. "The offshore accounts, the pension fund transfers. That's why you needed this deal so badly. Because without it—" "Not here." Victor cut her off, his eyes darting to Bradley. "Not in front of—" "Our son just destroyed our company, Victor. I think he deserves to know why." Victor grabbed Cynthia's arm, pulling her close enough to whisper directly into her ear. "If you say another word about the finances in any place where we might be recorded or overheard, I will make sure you regret it for the rest of your life. Do you understand me?" Cynthia pulled away, her eyes wide with a fear that had nothing to do with Maia Richardson. "Get the car," Victor said coldly. "We're leaving through the service entrance. And nobody talks to any reporters until I speak with legal." He turned and walked down the corridor without looking back to see if his family followed. Miles away in the back seat of a black Tesla, Maia held her sleeping daughter and let her own tears finally fall. Grace had cried herself into exhaustion, her tiny body limp against her mother's chest. Her face was still sticky with champagne, her braids still damp, but she was peaceful now. Safe. Marcus Cole, Maia's PR director, was in the front seat, his phone pressed to his ear, coordinating what would clearly be an all-night crisis response. "Yes, I've seen the videos, all of them. No, Ms. Richardson will not be making additional statements tonight. Yes, we'll have an official response by market open." He ended the call and turned to face Maia, his dark eyes full of concern. "It's everywhere," he said quietly. "I've never seen anything spread this fast. 10 million views across platforms, and it's been less than an hour." Maia didn't respond. She was stroking Grace's hair, counting her daughter's breaths, trying to convince herself that this nightmare had actually happened. "The public is completely on your side," Marcus continued. "I mean completely. 94% positive sentiment in the comments. People are calling you a hero. They're calling for boycotts of Thornton Energy. 3 senators have already tweeted support. Good. Your speech is being called one of the most powerful moments in corporate history. The way you stayed calm, the way you held Grace while you addressed the crowd." My daughter had alcohol poured in her eyes, Marcus. Maya's voice cracked despite her best efforts. She's 2 years old. She was screaming in pain, and those people stood there and laughed. Marcus fell silent. I don't care about the videos. I don't care about public sentiment. I don't care about being called a hero. Maya looked down at Grace's sleeping face. I care that my baby girl had to experience that she had to feel that burning in her eyes, that she had to hear those horrible people laughing at her. I know, Marcus said softly. I know. The Tesla pulled into the secure garage of Maya's apartment building. Her private security team was already waiting their presence, a reminder that her life hadn't been normal for a long time. Press at the main entrance, her driver reported. We'll use the private elevator. Maya carried Grace through the garage surrounded by guards and stepped into the elevator. The doors closed, sealing out the chaos of the outside world, at least temporarily. Her penthouse was quiet when she entered. The lights were dimmed, the city sparkling silently beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Her housekeeper Rosalind rushed forward with outstretched arms. I saw the news, Rosalind said, her Caribbean accent thick with emotion. Those terrible, terrible people. That precious baby. She's asleep now, Maya said, transferring Grace gently into Rosalind's arms. Can you wash the champagne out of her hair and maybe put her in the room with the star nightlight? The one she likes. Of course, ma'am, of course. Maya watched as Rosalind carried her daughter away, then turned to Marcus. What do you need from me tonight? He asked. I need you to make sure the withdrawal from the Thornton deal is airtight. I want it announced on every business network by market open. Already in process. I want a list of every partner, investor, and stakeholder who has any connection to the Thornton family. I want to know where the vulnerabilities are, theirs and ours. Marcus nodded, typing notes into his phone. And I want you to find out why they needed this deal so badly. Marcus looked up. What do you mean? Maya walked to the window, staring out at the city lights. The Thorntons are supposed to be worth billions. Their company has been around for 3 generations. They don't need our money to survive. So why was Victor Thornton so desperate for this partnership? Why did he look like he was going to be sick when I canceled it? You think there's something else going on? I know there is. Maya turned to face him. I've been in this business for 15 years, Marcus. I know what fear looks like. And Victor Thornton was afraid tonight. Not embarrassed. Not angry. Afraid. Her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it. She'd been ignoring calls and texts for the past hour. But something made her look at the screen. Unknown number. Encrypted message. She opened it, her exhaustion making her careless about security protocols. The words made her stop breathing. Ms. Richardson, my name is Dolores Hawkins. I worked in the Thornton household for 35 years as their housekeeper. What happened to your daughter tonight was not an isolated incident. They have done far worse things they have paid millions to keep hidden. I have documents. I have recordings. I have evidence that would destroy them completely. They thought the help was invisible. They were wrong. I am ready to share everything. Please meet with me. It is time someone held them accountable. Maya read the message 3 times. Ms. Richardson. Marcus's voice seemed to come from very far away. Everything okay? She looked up at him, and something new was burning in her eyes. Something cold and calculating and absolutely lethal. No, she said slowly. Everything is about to change. She forwarded the message to Marcus, watching his face as he read it. This could be nothing, he said carefully. A crank trying to capitalize on the situation. Or worse, a trap set by the Thorntons themselves. Maybe. Even if it's legitimate, pursuing this could get very messy. The Thorntons have resources, connections, lawyers. If they find out someone from inside their household is trying to betray them, they poured alcohol on my daughter's face. Maya interrupted, her voice flat and hard. Their 15-year-old son, who they raised to believe cruelty was entertainment. And when my 2-year-old baby screamed in pain, they laughed. She took her phone back from Marcus. They didn't just humiliate me tonight. They didn't just cost themselves a business deal. They showed me exactly who they are. And now someone is offering to prove that tonight wasn't an accident, that it was a pattern, a lifetime of patterns. What are you going to do? Maia typed her response carefully. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Cafe Madeline on 5th and Madison. Tell the hostess you're meeting someone about truth. She hit send. I'm going to find out everything, she told Marcus. Every secret, every crime, every buried body. And then I'm going to make sure the Thornton family never hurts anyone again. Her phone buzzed almost immediately with a response. I'll be there. Thank you for standing up to them tonight. You are not alone in this fight anymore. Maia stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she put the phone down and walked to Grace's room. Her daughter was already asleep in the bed, with the star nightlight, clean and peaceful, wearing her favorite pajamas with the little moons. Rosalind had done her job well. Maia stood in the doorway watching Grace breathe. I promise you, baby girl, she whispered into the darkness. They will never hurt you again. They will never hurt anyone again. She didn't know yet what was coming. She didn't know about the doctored videos that would try to paint her as the aggressor. She didn't know about the financial attacks that would freeze her accounts and threaten her company. She didn't know about the board members who would briefly waver under Thornton pressure. She didn't know that there would be a night not too far from now when she would slide down a wall in her panic room and cry until she couldn't breathe, certain that she had lost everything. But she also didn't know about the evidence Dolores Hawkins had spent 35 years gathering. She didn't know about the recordings and documents and photographs waiting in a worn leather suitcase. She didn't know about the web of fraud and corruption and systematic abuse that would soon be exposed to the world. She didn't know that her darkest hour would lead directly to the Thorntons' complete and total destruction. Tonight, standing in her daughter's doorway, Maia knew only one thing. She was a mother. Someone had hurt her child. And she was going to make them pay. Across the city in the Thornton mansion, Victor sat alone in his study, staring at his computer screen. The stock market wouldn't open for another 8 hours, but he already knew what was coming. The Asian markets had begun trading, and Thornton Energy shares were in free fall. His phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and felt his stomach drop. Charles Morrison, chairman of the board. Victor answered with a voice that didn't quite manage to sound confident. Charles, it's late. Not as late as it's going to get, Charles replied, his tone ice cold. I've been fielding calls for the past hour, from every member of the board, from our banking partners, from the SEC. The SEC. Apparently, when a major business deal collapses publicly under circumstances suggesting corporate instability, regulators get curious. Charles paused. They're asking questions, Victor. Questions about the quarterly reports. Questions about the offshore accounts. Questions I don't have answers to. Victor closed his eyes. Charles, I can explain. You can explain to the board. Emergency meeting tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. If you're smart, you'll have your lawyers present. And Victor, yes. Keep your son out of sight. If I see his face on another news program making this worse, I will personally ensure that the Thornton family name becomes synonymous with corporate disgrace. The line went dead. Victor sat in the darkness of his study, surrounded by 3 generations of family portraits, and understood for the first time that everything was falling apart. His phone buzzed with a new message. Unknown number. He opened it, expecting another angry board member or reporter. The words turned his blood to ice. Mr. Thornton, I know what you've done. All of it. Every buried scandal, every stolen dollar, every destroyed life. Someone is about to tell the whole world, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Sweet dreams. Victor threw the phone across the room, his hands shaking. Somewhere in the mansion, Bradley was crying in his room. Cynthia was on the phone with their lawyers, her voice rising in hysteria. The servants were whispering among themselves, already planning their exits from a sinking ship. And somewhere in the city, a 72-year-old woman named Dolores Hawkins was carefully packing a worn leather suitcase with 35 years of documented truth. The night was far from over. But the Thornton dynasty was already crumbling, and by morning, the whole world would see exactly how deep the rot went. The first rays of sunlight had barely touched the Manhattan skyline when Maia's phone began buzzing relentlessly. She had managed only 2 hours of restless sleep, her dreams filled with champagne splashing and laughter echoing through endless ballrooms. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. She answered immediately. "Tell me." 53 million views. Marcus's voice was hoarse from a sleepless night. Across all platforms, it's the #1 trending topic worldwide. Every major network is running the story. Maia sat up in bed, her body aching with exhaustion. And the Thorntons. "That's why I'm calling. Turn on CNN, right now." She grabbed the remote from her nightstand and clicked on the television. The screen filled with an image that made her blood run cold. Bradley Thornton III sat on a pristine white couch, tears streaming down his face. Beside him, Cynthia clutched his hand with maternal protectiveness. Across from them sat Mitchell Grant, the most famous interviewer in America, his expression arranged in practiced sympathy. "I was so scared." Bradley sobbed his designer suit, making him look even younger than 15. "She cornered me backstage before the gala even started. She said if my family didn't give her company what she wanted, she would destroy us." Maia's hand tightened on the remote. "That must have been terrifying for you," Mitchell Grant said, leaning forward. "You're just a child. I didn't know what to do." Bradley wiped his eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. "She was so aggressive. That's why I acted out. I was scared and trying to protect myself." "This is insane," Maia whispered into the phone. "I never even saw that boy before he poured champagne on my daughter." "It gets worse," Marcus said. "Keep watching." The camera cut to Cynthia, who dabbed at her own eyes with practiced grief. No child should feel threatened by a CEO throwing a tantrum over business negotiations. Bradley is traumatized. We all are. Then Victor Thornton appeared on screen, his expression grave and controlled. "We didn't want to release this footage," he said solemnly. "We hoped to protect everyone involved. But given the vicious attacks on our family's reputation, we feel the public deserves to see the truth." The screen switched to grainy security footage. It showed a figure that appeared to be Maia in a dimly lit hallway, her body language aggressive. The figure's finger jabbed toward Bradley's chest as he cowered against the wall. "Our security team enhanced the audio," Victor continued. A distorted voice played through the speakers. "I'll teach you what happens when you mess with me. Your whole family will regret this." Maia's stomach lurched. "That's not me. Marcus, I never spoke to that boy before the incident. That video is completely fabricated." "I know," Marcus said grimly. "But it's already been viewed 20 million times. And Maia, the comments are shifting. People are starting to question everything." She muted the television, but couldn't look away from Bradley's tearful face on screen. "What's the sentiment now?" "Split. Maybe 60-40 in our favor, but it was 94% last night. The needle is moving fast and not in our direction." Maia threw off her covers and stood. "Get the team together. Every lawyer, every PR specialist, every tech expert we have. I want that video analyzed frame by frame." "Already on it, but there's more." "What else?" Marcus hesitated. Titanium Solutions just released a statement. They're suspending all contracts with SolarNova pending a full investigation into your conduct. The words hit her like a punch to the chest. Titanium Solutions was their biggest client. Without those contracts, SolarNova would hemorrhage millions every quarter. Who else? 3 other partners are requesting emergency meetings. 2 investors have paused their commitments. And Maia, your board is demanding an emergency session this afternoon. She walked to Grace's room and pushed open the door. Her daughter was still sleeping peacefully, her tiny chest rising and falling, completely unaware that her mother's world was crumbling. "Schedule the board meeting for 4 o'clock, Maia said quietly, watching Grace breathe. And Marcus, find me everything you can about that security footage. The original file, the metadata, where it came from, who created it. I'm on it." She ended the call and stood in her daughter's doorway for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone and typed a message. "Ms. Hawkins, I need to move our meeting up. Can you come to my office at SolarNova Tower in 1 hour?" The response came within seconds. "I'll be there, and Ms. Richardson, bring someone you trust to verify what I'm about to show you. You'll need witnesses." Maia arrived at SolarNova headquarters at 7:45, her security team flanking her as she walked through the private entrance. The lobby was already buzzing with employees who had seen the news, their faces a mixture of concern and curiosity. Vivian Cross, her chief legal counsel, met her at the elevator. "I've been here since 5. The Thorntons filed a lawsuit at 6 a.m. "A lawsuit? Defamation and breach of contract. They're claiming you manufactured a racial incident to void a binding agreement. They're seeking $400 million in damages." The elevator doors closed. Maia pressed the button for the executive floor. "Can they win?" "Not on the contract claim. You were right. Nothing was signed. But the defamation angle." Vivian hesitated. "If that video gains traction, if people believe you threatened their son, it complicates things." "That video is fake, Vivian. I know, but we have to prove it." The elevator opened onto the executive floor where Marcus was waiting with a tablet in hand. "She's here," he said. "Dolores Hawkins. She's in the secure conference room with 2 of our investigators." Maia nodded. "Let's go." The woman waiting in the conference room was not what Maia expected. Dolores Hawkins was 72 years old, small and dignified, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her clothes were simple, but pressed to perfection, and she sat with her hands folded over a worn leather suitcase that looked like it had traveled through decades. "Ms. Richardson." Dolores rose slowly, her movements careful but steady. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice. Thank you for reaching out." Maia took a seat across from her, Marcus and Vivian flanking her on either side. "Your message said you have evidence." "I have 35 years of evidence." Dolores patted the leather suitcase. "I started keeping records my first week in that house. The way they spoke to staff. The way they treated anyone they considered beneath them. I knew from the beginning that someday someone would need proof." She unclasped the suitcase and began removing items. First came the journals, leather-bound notebooks, their pages yellowed with age, filled with precise handwriting. "Every incident documented," Dolores said. "Dates, times, witnesses, every racist comment, every employee they fired without cause, every harassment complaint that got buried." She opened the first journal, dated 1989. March 15th. Gregory Thornton Sr. berated a black groundskeeper until the man quit. Then he laughed about saving money on severance. Maia leaned forward. "Gregory Sr., Victor's father. This behavior goes back generations, Ms. Richardson. Victor learned it from his father. Bradley is learning it from Victor. It's a family tradition of cruelty." Dolores pulled out a small recording device. 10 years ago, I started carrying this. They never noticed. Why would they? I was just the help, invisible." She pressed play. Victor Thornton's voice filled the conference room crystal clear despite the age of the recording. "That Indian executive is asking too many questions about the accounting. Plant something in his office. Everyone knows those people can't be trusted with money anyway." Maia exchanged a glance with Vivian, whose face had gone pale. "How many recordings do you have?" "Hundreds." Dolores reached into the suitcase again. "But this is what you need most." She spread out financial documents across the table. Internal memos, bank transfers, offshore account records. They've been embezzling from their own company for years. Victor's gambling debts, Cynthia's spending addiction, private jets, hidden properties, bribes to keep scandals quiet. Dolores pointed to a specific column of numbers. "That deal with your company. They needed it to cover hundreds of millions in missing funds before the next audit." Vivian grabbed one of the documents, her lawyer's instincts taking over. These are internal Thornton energy records. How did you get them? Victor's home office connects to the company network. He thought his password was secure. It wasn't. This could be considered corporate espionage, Vivian said carefully. It could also be considered whistleblowing. Dolores replied without flinching. I witnessed crimes for 35 years. I documented them because I knew no one would believe a black housekeeper's word against a billionaire family. But documents don't lie. Recordings don't lie. Maia studied the financial records, her business mind already spotting the patterns. They were using the SolarNova partnership to hide their theft. Exactly. Clean energy investment provides perfect cover for moving money. Complicated transactions, international partners, tax incentives, plenty of places to hide stolen funds. Marcus looked up from his tablet. If this is true, the SEC would be very interested. The SEC, the FBI, the IRS. Dolores began replacing items in her suitcase. I have evidence that would interest all of them. But first, I need to know that you'll protect me. That you'll see this through. Maia met the older woman's eyes. Why me? Why now after 35 years? Dolores was quiet for a moment. I watched that video last night. Your daughter screaming, champagne burning her eyes, and those people laughing. Her voice cracked slightly. I saw myself in that moment. 35 years of staying quiet while they hurt people. Staying quiet to keep my job. Staying quiet because I thought that was all I could do. She reached across the table and took Maia's hand. But seeing you refuse to break, seeing you walk up to that stage and speak truth to power while your baby cried on your shoulder. Tears glittered in Dolores's eyes. It woke something in me. I'm 72 years old, Ms. Richardson. I don't have many years left, but I refuse to die with their secrets still buried. Maia squeezed the older woman's hand. I'll protect you, whatever it takes. Then let me show you one more thing. Dolores pulled out a manila envelope thick with photographs. Pictures from family events, private parties, things they did when they thought no one was watching or no one would dare speak. She spread the photos across the table. Bradley at age 6 throwing food at a maid while his parents applauded. Bradley at age 10 tripping an elderly gardener and laughing as the man fell. Bradley at age 12 spraying water in a housekeeper's face while Victor filmed and Cynthia clapped. They raised him to be cruel, Dolores said quietly. They trained him like an attack dog. What happened to your daughter wasn't an accident or a momentary lapse in judgment. It was exactly what he was taught to do. Maia stared at the photographs, feeling sick. There's more, Dolores continued. Correspondence proving they destroyed evidence in discrimination lawsuits. Forged signatures on settlements, payments to judges. Marcus's tablet buzzed. He glanced at it and went rigid. Maia, we have a problem. What now? 3 of your board members just called an emergency press conference. They're distancing themselves from you publicly. Which 3? Henderson, Morrison, and Blake, the ones with Thornton connections. Maia stood abruptly. When is the press conference? In 20 minutes. She turned to Dolores. I need you to stay here. My security team will protect you. Don't talk to anyone until I get back. Where are you going? To remind some people who built this company. The press conference was already underway when Maia arrived. 3 men in expensive suits stood behind a podium, their faces arranged in expressions of grave concern. We believe in due process, Richard Henderson was saying. But the allegations against Ms. Richardson are serious. Until they are thoroughly investigated, we feel it's best for SolarNova to distance itself from what exactly? Maia's voice cut through the room like a blade. Every head turned as she walked through the doors, her heels clicking against the floor, her spine straight as steel. Henderson's composure cracked visibly. Ms. Richardson, this is my company. She stopped directly in front of the podium, ignoring the cameras that swung toward her. A company I built from nothing while you sat on boards and collected checks. A company that made each of you millionaires. And now you want to distance yourself from me. The allegations, Morrison began, are lies. Maia turned to face the cameras. The video released this morning is a fabrication, a deep fake created by the Thornton family to discredit me after their son assaulted my 2-year-old daughter. Murmurs rippled through the assembled journalists. We're conducting a technical analysis right now, Maia continued. And within hours, we will have proof that the footage was digitally manufactured. But let me be clear about something. She turned back to the 3 board members. Any member of my board who wishes to side with the family that poured alcohol on my baby's face is welcome to resign. Today, I will personally buy out your shares at market rate. But if you stay, you stand with me. There is no middle ground. Henderson's face had gone red. You can't just, I can. Maia's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried across the silent room. I own 43% of this company. I have the loyalty of 7 board members who aren't currently embarrassing themselves on camera. And I have evidence that the Thornton family has been committing financial crimes for decades. Morrison stepped back involuntarily. What evidence? Evidence that will be shared with federal authorities within the week. Evidence that will make your cozy relationship with Victor Thornton a very uncomfortable topic of conversation. She smiled, and there was nothing warm in it. So, gentlemen, would you like to reconsider your press conference? The silence stretched for 10 seconds. 20. 30. Henderson was the first to break. Perhaps we were premature in our concerns. Perhaps you were. We should discuss this privately. Morrison added, already moving away from the podium. Internal matters should remain internal. I agree completely. Maia gestured toward the door. After you. The 3 men filed out heads down, refusing to meet the eyes of the journalists who were frantically taking notes. Maia turned to face the cameras one final time. SolarNova Technologies stands behind me. Our mission of clean ethical energy remains unchanged. And to the Thornton family, she paused, letting the moment build. We're just getting started. She walked out without taking questions. Back at her office, Marcus was waiting with news that made her heart stutter. Our forensics team found it. Found what? The flaw in the fake video. He pulled up the footage on her wall screen. Look at this brass doorknob at timestamp 1942-15. While the main image shows you threatening Bradley, the reflection in the doorknob shows an empty hallway. Maia leaned closer. The reflection was small, but unmistakable. A cleaning cart. No people. They digitally inserted figures into existing security footage, Marcus explained, but they forgot about reflective surfaces. Can we prove it conclusively? Dr. Sarah Walsh is the top digital forensics expert in the country. She's already analyzed the metadata. The file shows clear markers of editing software. Manipulation occurred at 3:47 a.m. yesterday, hours before it was released. Maia felt something loosen in her chest. Get this to every major network. I want it on air by the 5 o'clock news. Already done. But Maia, there's something else. She turned to look at him, reading the tension in his face. What is it? Your personal bank accounts have been frozen. All of them. And your credit lines at every major bank have been suspended. The words hit her like ice water. How is that possible? The Thorntons have connections everywhere. Old money networks, banking relationships that go back generations. Marcus hesitated. They're trying to strangle you financially, make it impossible to fight back. Maia sat down slowly, the weight of everything pressing against her shoulders. How long can the company operate if they come after SolarNova's accounts too? 3 weeks, maybe 4 at current burn rate. And if more partners pull out, less. She stared out the window at the city below. The empire she had built brick by brick was being attacked from every angle. There's one more thing, Marcus said quietly. Your apartment building called. Someone vandalized your front door last night. Vandalized how? He held up his phone, showing her a photograph. Racial slurs. Spray-painted in dripping red letters across the door she walked through every day. The door her daughter toddled past. The door that was supposed to mean safety and home. Maia felt something crack inside her. Something she had held together through sheer force of will since the moment champagne hit Grace's face. Police have been notified, Marcus continued, but they're not prioritizing it. No suspects, no witnesses. Of course not. She stood and walked to the window, her back to Marcus, her reflection a ghost against the glass. I want doubled security at my building. I want Grace moved to my mother's house until this is over. And I want... Her voice broke. Marcus waited. I want 5 minutes alone, she whispered. Just 5 minutes. He nodded and left without another word. Alone in her office, Maia Richardson pressed her forehead against the cold glass and let the tears come. Silent tears. Controlled tears. The tears of a woman who had spent her entire life being strong because the world had never given her the option to be anything else. They had come for her company. They had come for her reputation. They had come for her finances, her home, her sense of safety. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had thought she would break. Her phone buzzed with a new message from Dolores Hawkins. Ms. Richardson, I just received an anonymous threat. Someone knows I'm here. Someone knows what I have. We need to move faster than planned. Maia wiped her eyes, straightened her spine, and typed her response. Stay where you are. Security is on the way. Tonight we go public with everything. The response came immediately. I've been waiting 35 years for this night. I'm ready. Maia looked at her reflection in the window. The woman staring back at her was tired, wounded, pushed to the edge of breaking. But she wasn't broken. Not yet. Not ever. She pulled out her phone and called Marcus back. Change of plans. I want a press conference scheduled for tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. The biggest venue we can secure on short notice. What are we announcing? Everything. Maia's voice was steel now. Every document, every recording, every photograph Dolores has collected. We're going to expose 35 years of Thornton family crimes in one coordinated release. The Thorntons will come after us with everything they have. They already are. Maia turned away from the window, her decision made. The only way out is through, and I intend to bring their entire empire down on their heads. She ended the call and stood alone in her office as the sun began to set over Manhattan. Tomorrow would be war. But tonight she had one more battle to fight. At 8 p.m. her phone buzzed with an encrypted message from an unknown number. Ms. Richardson, I have information about the Thorntons that even Dolores doesn't know. Meet me at the parking garage on 52nd Street. Come alone. Your daughter's safety depends on it. Maia read the message 3 times, her heart pounding. A trap. Almost certainly. But what if it wasn't? What if there was more evidence, more ammunition, more truth waiting to be uncovered? She grabbed her coat and headed for the elevator, ignoring every instinct that screamed at her to stop. Some risks were worth taking, and she was done playing defense. The parking garage at 52nd Street was nearly empty at 8:15 p.m. Maia's heels echoed against concrete as she walked past rows of abandoned cars, her heart pounding against her ribs. Every shadow seemed to move, every sound amplified. She had ignored Marcus's calls. She had bypassed her security team. She had done exactly what the message demanded. Come alone. Your daughter's safety depends on it. The words had burned into her brain, overriding every logical instinct she possessed. If there was even a chance that Grace was in danger, she would walk into 100 dark parking garages. A figure stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. Maia stopped, her hand instinctively reaching for her phone. Don't! The voice was female, older, tired. I'm not here to hurt you, Ms. Richardson. I'm here to help you. The woman moved into the dim light. She was perhaps 60 years old, wearing a conservative gray coat, her hair streaked with silver. Her face was lined with the kind of exhaustion that came from years of carrying secrets. "Who are you?" "My name is Margaret Chen. I was Victor Thornton's personal accountant for 23 years. The woman's voice trembled slightly. "Until I discovered what he was really doing with the company's money." Maya's breath caught. "You sent the message?" "I had to get your attention, and I had to make sure you came alone. Victor has people everywhere. If he knew I was talking to you—" Margaret didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. "Why the threat about my daughter?" "Because I knew it was the only thing that would make you move fast enough. The Thorntons are planning something tonight. Something that will bury you before you ever get the chance to fight back." Maya stepped closer. "What are they planning?" Margaret reached into her coat and pulled out a flash drive. "This contains records of every illegal transaction the Thornton family has made in the past 2 decades. Offshore accounts in the Caymans, shell companies in Panama, bribes to politicians, judges, and regulatory officials." She held it out with a shaking hand. "I've been building this file for years, waiting for the right moment, waiting for someone brave enough to use it. Why didn't you come forward before?" "Because I have a family, a daughter, grandchildren." Margaret's eyes glistened. "Victor made it very clear what would happen if I ever betrayed him. But then I saw what his son did to your baby. I saw the video of your daughter screaming. And I realized that staying silent made me complicit in everything they've done." Maya took the flash drive, feeling its weight in her palm. Such a small object. Such enormous power. "There's something else." Margaret glanced nervously at the shadows around them. "Victor knows about Dolores Hawkins. He knows she's been gathering evidence for years. He has people watching her right now." Maya's blood ran cold. "Dolores is at my office, under security. Your security has been compromised. One of your guards is on Victor's payroll. He's been reporting your movements all day." At 8:32 p.m., Maya was running. Her heels clattered against the garage floor as she sprinted toward her car phone pressed to her ear. Marcus answered on the first ring. "Maya, where the hell are you? I've been trying—" "Dolores is in danger. One of our security team is working for Victor. I need you to get her out of the building now." "What? How do you know?" "Just do it, Marcus. Take her to the safe house on Riverside. Use the back elevator. Trust no one from the security team except James. Only James." She ended the call and threw herself into her car, the engine roaring to life. The flash drive sat in her pocket like a bomb waiting to explode. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Too late, Ms. Richardson. The old woman is already gone." Maya's heart stopped. She called Dolores's number. No answer. She called Marcus again. "Did you get her?" "She's not here." Marcus's voice was tight with panic. "The conference room is empty. Her suitcase is gone. One of the security guards said she left voluntarily with 2 men in suits." "She didn't leave voluntarily. They took her." "Who took her?" "The Thorntons." Maya's hands gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles went white. "They've had someone inside our security all along. They knew everything." She was driving fast now, weaving through traffic, her mind racing faster than the car. "Maya, if they have Dolores and her evidence, they don't have all of it." She thought of the flash drive in her pocket. Margaret Chen's 20 years of documentation. "We still have ammunition, but we need to move tonight, before they can destroy what Dolores collected." Move how the press conference isn't until tomorrow morning. Then we move up the timeline. Get Dr. Walsh and her team to finish analyzing the fake video. I want irrefutable proof of manipulation within the hour. And Marcus. "Yeah. Call the FBI. Tell them we have evidence of federal crimes. Tell them the Thornton family just kidnapped a witness." At 9:07 p.m., Maya pulled into the underground garage of her office building. Her phone had been buzzing constantly with updates, none of them good. The Thornton family had gone dark. Victor wasn't answering calls from his own board members. Cynthia had disappeared from public view. Bradley had been pulled from school and was reportedly at an undisclosed location. They were circling the wagons, preparing for war. Maya stepped out of her car and found Marcus waiting for her, his face pale with stress. We have a problem. Another one. A big one. He held up his tablet. The Thorntons just filed an emergency injunction. They're claiming the evidence we were planning to release was obtained illegally. A judge, one of Victor's golf buddies, I'm guessing, signed off on it 20 minutes ago. If we release anything from Dolores's files, we'll be in contempt of court. Maia felt the walls closing in around her. What about the video analysis? Can we release that? That's still clear. The fake video they created isn't covered by the injunction. Then we lead with that. Get Dr. Walsh in front of cameras tonight. If we can prove they manufactured evidence, everything else falls apart. They walked toward the elevator, Marcus briefing her on the latest developments. There's something else. Your mother called. She's at the safe house with Grace. They're both fine, but she's scared Maia. She's asking what's going on. Maia closed her eyes briefly. Her mother. Her daughter. The two people she loved most in the world, now hiding in a safe house because a billionaire family couldn't accept consequences for their actions. Tell her I'll call as soon as I can. Tell her Grace is safe. That's all that matters right now. The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor, which had been transformed into a war room. Lawyers huddled over documents. PR specialists coordinated with media contacts. Tech experts analyzed data on multiple screens. Dr. Sarah Walsh approached immediately, her expression urgent. Ms. Richardson, we've completed the full analysis. Show me. Dr. Walsh led her to a large monitor where the fake security video played on a loop. The manipulation is extensive but sloppy. They were clearly working under time pressure. She pointed to various elements on screen. The reflection anomaly you already know about. But there's more. She zoomed in on Maia's supposed figure in the video. The shadow angles are inconsistent with the light sources in the hallway. Here and here and here. The figure's movements don't match the natural physics of human motion. The AI they used to generate this wasn't sophisticated enough. Can you prove it definitively? Beyond any doubt. The metadata shows the file was created using commercial editing software at 3:47 a.m. yesterday morning. The original security footage from that timestamp shows an empty hallway. They literally inserted a fabricated confrontation into real footage. Maia felt something loosen in her chest. How quickly can you prepare this for broadcast? Give me 30 minutes. At 9:42 p.m., every major news network received an embargoed press package from SolarNova Technologies. The embargo was set to lift at 10 o'clock. Maia sat in her office watching the minutes tick down when her phone rang. Unknown number, she answered. Ms. Richardson. Victor Thornton's voice was silk over steel. I believe we should talk. Where is Dolores Hawkins? The old woman is fine. She's being treated very well. She simply reconsidered her desire to share family secrets with the world. You kidnapped her. I invited her to stay at a comfortable location while she thought more carefully about the consequences of her actions. Victor's tone remained pleasant, conversational. You should do the same, Ms. Richardson. Think carefully. Is that a threat? It's an observation. You're a single mother with a young daughter. A beautiful little girl from what I saw at the gala. It would be a shame if her mother's reckless behavior put her in danger. Maia's grip on the phone tightened until her hand ached. If you touch my daughter, I don't need to touch anyone. I simply need to make a few phone calls. To Child Protective Services, perhaps. Anonymous tips about an unstable mother who threatens teenagers and engages in corporate espionage. How long do you think you'd keep custody? The threat hit her like a physical blow. Grace. They were threatening to take Grace. You're desperate, Maia said, fighting to keep her voice steady. You wouldn't be making these threats if you weren't terrified of what's about to come out. I'm a practical man, Ms. Richardson. I've been in business for 40 years. I've faced challenges before, but I've never lost. And I'm not going to start losing to a woman who got lucky with some solar panels. Lucky, Maia laughed, but there was no humor in it. I built my company with 18-hour days and no sleep, and every door slammed in my face because I was black and female and didn't come from money. Everything I have, I earned. Can you say the same, Mr. Thornton? Silence on the line. You have 20 minutes to withdraw your press release, Victor finally said. After that, I will deploy every resource at my disposal to destroy you. Your company, your reputation, your family, everything. 20 minutes. Maia glanced at the clock. That's perfect. Because in 18 minutes, every news network in America is going to broadcast proof that your family fabricated evidence, that your son is a liar, that you've been covering up crimes for decades. You're bluffing. Watch the 10 o'clock news and find out. She ended the call. Her hands were shaking, her heart was pounding. But something else was burning through her fear now. Something hot and bright and absolutely unstoppable. Rage. At 10 p.m. exactly, Dr. Sarah Walsh appeared on CNN. The video released by the Thornton family this morning is definitively provably fake, she announced, as graphics displayed her technical findings. The footage was digitally manipulated using commercial software. The metadata confirms it was created less than 48 hours ago. The original security footage from that timestamp shows an empty hallway. The anchor leaned forward. So you're saying Ms. Richardson never threatened Bradley Thornton? The confrontation depicted in that video never happened. It is a complete fabrication. Within minutes, the story had exploded. Hashtags trended, pundits debated. The Thorntons' carefully constructed narrative crumbled in real time. Maia watched from her office as the tide turned. Comments flooded in faster than anyone could track. They faked the video. They actually faked it. What kind of family teaches their kid to lie like this? SolarNova's stock is going to rocket tomorrow. Marcus burst through her door. Victor Thornton just released a statement. He's claiming Dr. Walsh's analysis is politically motivated and scientifically flawed. No one's buying it. No, they're not. His own PR firm just quit. Publicly. They issued a statement saying they refuse to represent clients who fabricate evidence. Maia allowed herself a small smile. The first genuine smile in 2 days. But it faded quickly. We still don't have Dolores. We still don't know where they're keeping her. Actually, Marcus hesitated. We might have a lead on that. At 10:23 p.m., a woman named Rosa Martinez approached SolarNova's lobby security desk. She was 54 years old, wearing a housekeeping uniform, and she was terrified. I need to speak to Ms. Richardson, she said. It's about Mrs. Hawkins. I know where they're keeping her. 10 minutes later, Rosa sat across from Maia in the secure conference room. I work at the Thornton estate. Rosa explained, her accent thick with nerves. I've been there for 12 years. I saw them bring in an older woman this evening. Black lady, silver hair. They put her in the guest house with guards outside. Is she hurt? I don't think so. But they took a suitcase from her. Mr. Thornton himself carried it into his office. He looked happy. Too happy. Maia exchanged a glance with Marcus. Dolores's evidence. Why are you telling us this? She asked Rosa. Because Mrs. Hawkins helped me once. 5 years ago when Mr. Thornton tried to fire me without paying my back wages. She kept records of my hours, showed them to his accountant, made sure I got every penny. Rosa's eyes filled with tears. She was the only one in that house who ever treated me like a person. I can't let them hurt her. Can you help us get her out? Rosa's face paled. I could lose my job. Or worse. You could also help take down a family that has been abusing people like you for generations. Maia leaned forward. I know what I'm asking. I know the risk. But Dolores risked everything to help me. Now it's my turn to help her. Rosa was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. There's a service entrance on the east side. The guards don't watch it during shift change at midnight. If you can get in, then I can show you where they're keeping her. At 11:05 p.m., Maia's phone rang again. This time it was Vivian Cross. Maia, we have a situation. Good or bad? Complicated. Vivian's voice was tight. An FBI team just arrived at our offices. They want to talk to you about the evidence you claim to have against the Thorntons. That's good, isn't it? We wanted federal involvement. It would be good, except they're also asking questions about how that evidence was obtained. The Thornton's injunction claims it was stolen. If the FBI thinks you acquired evidence illegally, it could invalidate everything we're trying to do. Maia felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Another trap, another complication. I'll talk to them, she said. Where are they? Conference room B. But Maia, be careful what you say. These agents might not be friendly. At 11:18 p.m. Maia walked into conference room B. 2 FBI agents sat waiting, a man in his 50s with silver hair and a woman in her 30s with sharp eyes. Ms. Richardson? The man stood. I'm Special Agent Morrison. This is Special Agent Chen. We appreciate you speaking with us. I appreciate you being here. The Thornton family has kidnapped a 72-year-old woman who was helping with my investigation. She's being held at their estate against her will. Agent Morrison raised an eyebrow. That's a serious accusation. I have a witness who can confirm it. The Thorntons took Dolores Hawkins this evening. They also fabricated video evidence to frame me for threatening their son. Your own analysts can verify the manipulation. We've seen the broadcast, Agent Chen said. The technical analysis is compelling. Then you understand why I'm asking for help. The Thorntons are desperate. They've been committing financial crimes for decades, and they're trying to bury anyone who can expose them. Agent Morrison leaned back in his chair. Ms. Richardson, we're interested in the Thornton family. We've been interested for quite some time, but we need evidence that will hold up in court. Evidence obtained through proper channels. I have that evidence. Maia pulled out the flash drive Margaret Chen had given her. This contains 20 years of financial records documenting fraud, embezzlement, and bribery. It was given to me by a former Thornton accountant who is willing to testify. Agent Chen's eyes widened slightly. A cooperating witness? Yes. And if you can get Dolores Hawkins out of that estate, you'll have another one, with 35 years of documentation. The two agents exchanged a look. We'll need to verify this, Morrison said carefully. But if what you're saying is true, we can move quickly. How quickly? We could have a team at the Thornton estate within hours. At 11:55 p.m., Maia sat in the back of an FBI vehicle, watching the lights of the Thornton estate through the windshield. Beside her, Agent Chen was coordinating with teams positioned around the perimeter. Remember, Chen said, you stay in the car. This is a federal operation now. I understand. I mean it, Ms. Richardson. Whatever happens in there, you do not leave this vehicle. Maia nodded, but her eyes were fixed on the guest house where Rosa had said Dolores was being held. Somewhere in that building, a 72-year-old woman was waiting for rescue. A woman who had risked everything to help her. At midnight exactly, the FBI moved. Vehicles rolled through the gates. Agents in tactical gear approached the main house. Shouts echoed across the manicured lawn. Maia watched her heart pounding as lights flicked on throughout the estate. She could see figures moving behind windows. She could hear Victor Thornton's voice raised in outrage, demanding to see warrants. Then she saw something that made her blood freeze. A side door opening. A figure being dragged out. Silver hair catching the moonlight. Dolores. Two men were pulling her toward a black SUV parked near the service entrance. The same entrance Rosa had mentioned. They were trying to move her before the FBI could reach her. Maia's hand was on the door handle before she consciously decided to move. Ms. Richardson. Agent Chen grabbed her arm. I told you to stay. But Maia was already out of the car, running across the lawn, screaming at the top of her lungs. FBI. They're taking her east side. East side. The men dragging Dolores froze. One of them reached for something at his belt. Agents converged from multiple directions, weapons drawn, commands shouted. Drop her! Drop her now! Hands where we can see them! The men released Dolores, who crumpled to the grass. Maia reached her seconds later, dropping to her knees beside the older woman. Dolores, Dolores, can you hear me? The woman's eyes fluttered open. She looked dazed, exhausted, but alive. Ms. Richardson. Her voice was barely a whisper. They took my suitcase. All my evidence. It's okay. We have copies. We have other sources. You're safe now. Dolores gripped Maia's hand with surprising strength. They told me no one would come. They told me you would abandon me. Maia felt tears burning her eyes. I would never abandon you. Never. Around them, the FBI operation continued. Agents entered the main house. Victor Thornton's voice grew louder, then abruptly stopped. At 12:22 a.m., Victor Thornton was led out of his own home in handcuffs. Maia watched from beside the ambulance where paramedics were examining Dolores. She watched as the man who had threatened her daughter, who had laughed while champagne burned her baby's eyes, who had tried to destroy everything she had built, was forced into the back of a federal vehicle. Their eyes met briefly. Victor's face was a mask of hatred, pure, undiluted hatred. Maia didn't look away. This isn't over, Victor shouted as agents pushed him into the car. You hear me, Richardson? This isn't over. I will destroy you. I will destroy everything you... The door slammed shut, cutting off his threats. At 12:35 a.m., Cynthia Thornton was brought out in handcuffs. Her designer dress wrinkled her carefully styled hair in disarray. She was crying, mascara running down her cheeks, but no one seemed particularly moved. Bradley followed 20 minutes later, escorted by agents and a child services representative. He looked terrified, small. Nothing like the confident bully who had poured champagne on a baby. Maia felt nothing. No satisfaction. No triumph. Just a bone-deep exhaustion and a desperate need to hold her daughter. Ms. Richardson? Agent Morrison approached her. We found the suitcase. Dolores's evidence. It was in Victor's office safe. Is it intact? Everything appears to be there. Journals, recordings, photographs, financial documents. Combined with what you provided, we have enough to pursue federal charges against the entire family. Maia let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. What happens now? Now. Morrison almost smiled. Now we take apart an empire. At 2:07 a.m., Maia finally arrived at the safe house where her mother and daughter were waiting. Grace was asleep, her tiny body curled around a stuffed elephant, her face peaceful and unknowing. Maia's mother, Patricia, rose from the couch where she'd been keeping watch. Is it over? Patricia whispered. Not yet. Maia pulled her mother into a hug. But we won the first battle. I saw the news. That poor woman they kidnapped. The arrests. Dolores is going to be okay. The Thorntons are in custody. Patricia pulled back to look at her daughter's face. And you? Are you okay? Maia considered the question. Her body ached. Her mind was numb. She had been threatened, attacked, and pushed to the breaking point, but she was still standing. I will be, she said softly. I will be. She walked into Grace's room and stood beside her daughter's bed, watching the gentle rise and fall of her breathing. This was why she had fought. This was why she would keep fighting. Maia bent down and pressed a kiss to Grace's forehead. I love you, baby girl, she whispered. No one will ever hurt you again. Grace stirred slightly, her tiny hand reaching out in her sleep. Maia took that hand and held it, her tears falling silently onto the blanket. The night was finally over, but the work of justice was just beginning. The morning after the FBI raid, Maia woke to the sound of her phone buzzing relentlessly on the nightstand. She had managed only 3 hours of sleep, her body finally surrendering to exhaustion around 4 a.m. Now at 7:15, the world was demanding her attention again. She grabbed the phone and saw 47 missed calls, 82 text messages, over 300 emails. The first text was from Marcus. Turn on any news channel, now. Maia walked into the living room of the safe house where her mother was already watching television with the volume low so Grace wouldn't wake. The screen showed aerial footage of the Thornton estate surrounded by FBI vehicles crawling with federal agents. It's been running all night, Patricia whispered. They're calling it the biggest corporate fraud case in 20 years. The anchor's voice filled the room. Federal authorities have confirmed that Victor Thornton, his wife Cynthia, and several senior executives of Thornton Energy Group are now in custody facing multiple charges, including fraud, embezzlement, witness tampering, and kidnapping. The arrests came following a dramatic late-night raid on the family's Manhattan estate. The screen cut to footage of Victor being led out in handcuffs, his face twisted with rage. Sources tell us that evidence gathered over decades by a former household employee, combined with documentation from a cooperating witness inside the company, painted a picture of systematic criminal activity spanning 3 generations of the Thornton family. Maia's phone rang. "Marcus, are you seeing this? I'm seeing it. It gets better. Check your email, the one from the SEC." Maia scrolled through her inbox until she found it. The subject line made her breath catch. Notice of investigation closure, SolarNova Technologies. "They dropped the investigation?" she asked, hardly believing it. "Completely. The SEC determined that all evidence the Thorntons provided against us was fraudulent. They're actually apologizing for the inconvenience. And the injunction. Dissolved as of 6 a.m. The judge who signed it is now under investigation himself. Apparently, Victor had been paying him for favorable rulings for the past 15 years. Maia sat down heavily on the couch. Her mother reached over and squeezed her hand. "What about our banking situation?" "Every freeze has been lifted. I've already had calls from 3 major banks offering us favorable terms. They're falling over themselves to distance from the Thorntons and align with us." At 8:03 a.m., Maia's phone rang again. This time, the caller ID showed the name of someone she hadn't expected to hear from. Richard Henderson, the board member who had tried to publicly distance himself from her just yesterday. She answered with ice in her voice. "Mr. Henderson." "Ms. Richardson." His tone was completely different now. Humble, almost pleading. "I'm calling to apologize. My behavior yesterday was unconscionable. I allowed myself to be manipulated by people I should never have trusted. You stood at a podium and tried to destroy my reputation. I know, and I'm deeply sorry. I was wrong. About everything." Henderson's voice cracked slightly. "I've tendered my resignation from the board effective immediately. But before I go, I wanted you to know that Victor Thornton had been threatening me for months. He had information about my past things I'm not proud of. He said if I didn't help him take you down, he would ruin me." Maia was silent for a long moment. "What kind of information? Personal matters, a bankruptcy I hid years ago, an affair that nearly destroyed my marriage." Henderson sighed heavily. "None of it excuses what I did, but I wanted you to understand that Victor Thornton has been collecting leverage on people for decades. He controlled half of Manhattan's corporate leadership through blackmail and threats. And now he's in federal custody, and all of us who lived under his thumb are finally free." Henderson paused. "You did that, Ms. Richardson. You stood up to him when the rest of us were too afraid. I may have been your enemy yesterday, but I want you to know that today, I'm nothing but grateful." At 8:45 a.m., Maia arrived at SolarNova headquarters. The lobby was transformed. Employees lined the hallways, many of them holding signs. "We stand with Maia. Truth wins. SolarNova strong." As she walked through, they began to applaud. The sound started small, just a few people near the entrance, but it spread like wildfire, growing louder and louder, until the entire building seemed to shake with it. Maia stopped walking, overwhelmed. A young engineer stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "Ms. Richardson, my mother was one of the domestic workers the Thorntons mistreated. She worked for them for 3 years before they fired her without cause. When I saw what you did when I saw you refuse to break, I called her and told her that finally someone was fighting back." Others stepped forward with similar stories. A janitor whose brother had been cheated by Thornton contractors. A security guard whose cousin had been falsely accused of theft by Cynthia Thornton. a receptionist whose grandmother had cleaned Thornton offices for minimum wage while being called names she couldn't repeat. The Thornton family's cruelty had touched more lives than Maia had ever imagined. "Thank you," she managed to say, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you all. But we're not done yet. We need to rebuild. We need to show the world that companies can be run with integrity, with respect, with dignity for every single person who walks through our doors." The applause erupted again. At 9:30 a.m., the board meeting convened. 7 of the 10 remaining board members sat around the conference table. The 3 who had aligned with the Thorntons, Henderson, Morrison, and Blake, had all resigned overnight. Charles Weber, the lead director, called the meeting to order. "Before we proceed with any business, I believe we need to address the extraordinary events of the past 72 hours. He turned to face Maia directly. "Ms. Richardson, on behalf of the board, I want to offer our sincere apologies for any doubt that was expressed about your leadership during this crisis. You faced an unprecedented attack from one of the most powerful families in America, and you handled it with courage, integrity, and grace." "Thank you, Charles. That said, we have formal business to conduct." Weber looked around the table. "I'm calling for a vote to reaffirm Maia Richardson as CEO of SolarNova Technologies. All in favor?" 7 hands rose without hesitation. The vote is unanimous. Ms. Richardson remains CEO with the board's complete and total confidence. Maia nodded, accepting the validation, but her mind was already on what came next. "Thank you all. Now let's talk about the future." She stood and walked to the presentation screen. "The Thornton deal is dead. That's $650 million we no longer have access to. But in the past 12 hours, we've received partnership inquiries totaling over $2 billion. Murmurs of surprise rippled around the table. Companies that wanted nothing to do with us yesterday are now desperate to align with SolarNova. They see what we represent. Not just clean energy, but clean business, ethical leadership, the courage to stand against corruption even when it costs us everything. She pulled up a list of names on the screen. Major tech companies, international energy firms, government contractors. I'm recommending we pursue partnerships with the following organizations, all of whom have demonstrated commitment to the values we represent. The board reviewed the proposals. Questions were asked and answered. Details were discussed and refined. By 11 a.m., they had approved partnerships worth $1.3 billion, more than double what the Thornton deal would have provided. At 11:22 a.m., Maia stepped out of the board meeting to find Agent Morrison waiting in the hallway. "Ms. Richardson, do you have a moment?" "Of course." They walked to a quiet corner away from the bustle of employees and journalists who had gathered in the building. "I wanted to update you on Dolores Hawkins," Morrison said. "She's been released from the hospital. Minor dehydration and stress, but nothing serious. She's asking to see you." "Where is she?" "One of our safe houses. But she's insisting on being moved somewhere more comfortable. Specifically, she mentioned wanting to stay in a guest room at someone named Rosa's apartment." Maia smiled. "Rosa Martinez. She helped us find Dolores. They're old friends. We can arrange protection at whatever location works best. Given the scope of charges we're filing, Dolores is now a protected federal witness." "What charges exactly?" Morrison pulled out a document. 37 counts of wire fraud, 22 counts of tax evasion, 15 counts of money laundering, 8 counts of witness tampering, 4 counts of obstruction of justice, 2 counts of kidnapping. And we're still adding to the list. What about Bradley? The son is a complicated situation. He's a minor, so he's being handled through juvenile proceedings. But given the video evidence of his assault on your daughter and the clear pattern of behavior documented in Dolores's records, he's been remanded to a therapeutic facility pending psychological evaluation. Will he face real consequences? Yes. Not prison because of his age, but mandatory treatment, community service, and supervision until he turns 21. His parents' lawyers tried to argue affluenza, but that defense doesn't work so well when the whole country watched him pour champagne on a toddler. Maia felt something in her chest release. Not satisfaction exactly, more like relief. Bradley wasn't a monster. He was a child who had been raised by monsters. Maybe with intervention, he could become something better. And Victor and Cynthia. They're looking at decades. Morrison's voice was grim. The financial crimes alone carry 20 years minimum. Add the kidnapping charges, the evidence tampering, the obstruction. They're never coming home. At 12:15 p.m., Maia visited Dolores at Rosa's small apartment in Queens. The elderly woman was sitting in a comfortable chair by the window, a cup of tea warming her hands. She looked tired, but peaceful. Rosa hovered nearby, protective and attentive. "Ms. Richardson," Dolores smiled as Maia entered. "I was hoping you'd come." Maia pulled up a chair beside her. "How are you feeling?" "Better than I've felt in 35 years. Dolores set down her tea. "When they took me from your office, I thought it was over. I thought they had won again the way they always win." "They didn't win." "No, they didn't." Dolores reached out and took Maia's hand. "Because of you. Because you didn't give up on me. Even when it would have been easier to let me disappear. I would never have let that happen. I know that now. But when I was sitting in that guest house surrounded by guards watching Victor Thornton gloat about how he had destroyed all my evidence." Dolores's voice wavered. "I lost hope. For the first time in decades, I actually lost hope." "But you kept copies," Maia said. "The FBI told me they found backups hidden throughout the estate. In the gardening shed. In the wine cellar. In places nobody would think to look." Dolores's eyes twinkled. 35 years taught me never to put all my eggs in one basket. Victor found my main collection, but he didn't find everything. He never understood that invisible people see everything, remember everything, and hide things in places the powerful would never think to look. Rosa brought fresh tea for both of them, her face glowing with pride. "Ms. Richardson," Dolores said, her tone becoming serious. "What happens now, to me I mean? I'm 72 years old. I have no savings to speak of. I gave my whole life to documenting what that family did, but I never planned for what would happen after." Maia squeezed her hand. "I've been thinking about that. In fact, I have a proposal for you." At 1:45 p.m., Maia held a press conference in the SolarNova lobby. Hundreds of journalists had gathered their cameras, creating a wall of light. Behind Maia stood her executive team, Dolores Hawkins, and representatives from the FBI. 3 days ago, Maia began. "My 2-year-old daughter had alcohol poured on her face by a 15-year-old boy whose parents laughed and applauded. I stood in a ballroom full of wealthy, powerful people and watched them turn my child's pain into entertainment." She paused, letting the words settle. "In the hours and days that followed, the Thornton family tried to destroy me. They fabricated evidence. They filed false lawsuits. They froze my accounts, attacked my reputation, threatened my child, and kidnapped the woman who had the courage to help me expose their crimes." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "They failed. Not because I'm special or powerful or wealthy. They failed because the truth is stronger than lies, no matter how much money backs those lies. They failed because good people like Dolores Hawkins and Rosa Martinez and Margaret Chen refused to stay silent. They failed because this is America, and in America, even billionaires have to face consequences." She gestured for Dolores to join her at the podium. "Today, I'm announcing the creation of the Grace Hawkins Foundation, named in honor of my daughter and the woman who helped save her future." Dolores stepped forward, standing beside Maia with quiet dignity. "The foundation will be funded with an initial $100 million commitment from SolarNova Technologies. Its mission will be threefold. First, to provide legal and financial support for whistleblowers who expose corporate wrongdoing. Second, to assist workers facing discrimination, wage theft, or unsafe conditions. Third, to document and preserve the stories of those who have been silenced by power." Maia turned to Dolores. "And Mrs. Hawkins has agreed to serve as the foundation's first director." No one is better qualified to lead this work than the woman who spent 35 years proving that truth can survive in darkness. Dolores stepped to the microphone, her voice steady despite the enormity of the moment. For most of my life, I was invisible. The help. The maid. Someone to be ignored, dismissed, spoken over. But I saw everything. I remembered everything. And I wrote it all down because I believed that someday someone would care. She looked out at the sea of cameras. Ms. Richardson cared. She put herself at risk to protect a woman she had never met. She fought for justice, even when it cost her everything. And now together we're going to make sure that no one else has to wait 35 years for the truth to matter. The questions came rapid fire after that. About the Foundation's specific programs. About the ongoing federal investigation. About the Thornton family's response. At 2:30 p.m., as the press conference wound down, Marcus pulled Maia aside with urgent news. Victor Thornton wants to make a deal. Maia's eyes narrowed. What kind of deal? His lawyers reached out to the FBI. He's offering to provide testimony against other corporate executives, politicians, and judges who participated in his schemes. In exchange, he wants reduced charges. He kidnapped a 72-year-old woman. He threatened my daughter. He spent decades destroying lives. I know, the FBI isn't inclined to deal with him either, but I thought you should know he's trying. Maia felt the familiar anger rising in her chest. Even now, even in custody, facing decades in prison, Victor Thornton was trying to wriggle out of consequences. He couldn't conceive of a world where his money and connections didn't buy him an escape. Let him try, she said finally. He'll learn that some debts can't be negotiated away. At 3:15 p.m., Maia finally returned to the safe house to see her daughter. Grace was in the living room playing with blocks, her giggles filling the small space with light. Patricia sat nearby watching her granddaughter with tired but happy eyes. Mama! Grace spotted her mother and came running, her little legs wobbling with excitement. Maia scooped her up, holding her tight, breathing in the smell of baby shampoo and innocence. Hi, baby girl. I missed you so much. Mama was on TV, Grace announced proudly. Grandma showed me. You saw that? You looked pretty. Everyone was clapping. Maia felt tears threatening and blinked them back. They were clapping because we did something important, baby. We helped people who needed help. Like helpers. Yes, exactly like helpers. Grace nodded seriously, as if this made perfect sense. Then she wriggled out of Maia's arms and returned to her blocks, the mysteries of adult battles already forgotten. Patricia stood and hugged her daughter. I'm so proud of you. Your father would have been proud too. I wish he could have seen it. He did see it. I have no doubt about that. They stood together watching Grace build her tower of blocks, knock it down, and start again with undiminished enthusiasm. When can we go home? Patricia asked. Soon. The FBI says the security risk has dropped significantly now that the Thorntons are in custody. Another day or two, and we should be clear. And then what? Maia smiled. And then we get back to work, building something better. Something that will outlast all of us. At 5:08 p.m. news broke that Thornton Energy's board of directors had voted unanimously to remove the Thornton family name from the company entirely. The corporation would be restructured under new leadership with new ethics guidelines, new diversity requirements, and new accountability measures. Several board members had already resigned, and the remaining executives were cooperating fully with federal investigators. 3 generations of Thornton dominance erased in less than a week. Maia watched the announcement from the safe house, Grace playing at her feet, her mother dozing in a nearby chair. Her phone buzzed with a message from Vivian Cross. The restructured company wants to discuss a partnership with SolarNova. They're offering very favorable terms. Should I pursue it? Maia typed her response carefully. Tell them we'll consider it, but only if they agree to full transparency, independent auditing, and a genuine commitment to the values they claim to embrace. We don't partner with logos, we partner with principles. The response came back immediately. Understood. I'll make sure they know this is their one chance. At 7:30 p.m., Maia received a call she had been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. Ms. Richardson. The voice was young, uncertain, and somehow familiar. This is Bradley Thornton. Maia's grip tightened on the phone. How did you get this number? The counselors at the facility helped me. They said I could call if I wanted to. They said it might help. Silence stretched between them. I wanted to apologize. Bradley's voice cracked. What I did to your daughter, it was wrong. I knew it was wrong when I did it, but I did it anyway because I thought it would be funny, because my parents would laugh, because everyone always laughed. Maia said nothing. I've been talking to the therapists here, learning about why I am the way I am. They showed me videos of things I did when I was younger. Things I don't even remember, and I saw how my parents encouraged it, how they trained me to be cruel. That doesn't excuse what you did. I know, nothing excuses it. But I wanted you to know that I'm going to try to be different. I'm going to try to understand why hurting people isn't funny, why power isn't supposed to be used to make others feel small. Maia closed her eyes, thinking of her daughter's scream, the champagne dripping from her braids, the terror in her eyes. Bradley, I don't forgive you. I may never forgive you. What you did to Grace, she might not remember it, but I will remember it for the rest of my life. I understand. But I hope you do change. I hope the person you become is nothing like the person your parents raised you to be. Not for my sake, for your own. Another long silence. Thank you for taking the call, Bradley said finally. I didn't expect you to. I almost didn't. Maia paused. Goodbye, Bradley. She ended the call and sat for a long moment processing emotions she couldn't quite name. Rage still. Pain certainly. But also something unexpected. Something that felt almost like pity. Bradley Thornton was 15 years old. He had been raised by wolves and taught that cruelty was love. He wasn't a monster by nature. He was a monster by design. Could he be redesigned? She didn't know. But she hoped for his sake that the answer was yes. At 9:12 p.m., the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. Agent Morrison called with an update that made Maia's heart stop. We traced the offshore accounts, all of them. The money the Thorntons embezzled over the past 20 years totals just over $470 million. Where did it go? Cayman Islands, Panama, Switzerland, the usual hiding spots for stolen wealth. But here's the thing, Ms. Richardson. Federal asset forfeiture laws mean we can recover most of it, and since a significant portion of that money was stolen from Thornton Energy shareholders and employees, it will be returned to victims. How much are we talking about? After legal proceedings, probably around $300 million distributed among affected parties. Maia thought of all the workers Dolores had documented, the ones who had been cheated, the ones who had been fired without cause, the ones whose wages had been stolen year after year. Can you make sure Dolores has input on how that money is distributed? She knows who suffered. She has records of everyone the Thorntons hurt. We're already planning to consult with her. Her documentation is unprecedented. It's going to be studied in law schools for decades as an example of how to build a case against corporate corruption. At 10 p.m., Maia stood in Grace's room watching her daughter sleep. The little girl had no idea what had happened over the past 3 days. She didn't understand that her mother had gone to war against one of the most powerful families in America and won. She didn't understand that her pain had sparked a movement, that her tears had ended an empire. All Grace knew was that Mama was here now, that she was safe, that the world was still full of blocks to stack, and songs to sing, and love to receive. Maia bent down and kissed her daughter's forehead. "We did it, baby girl," she whispered. "We did it." Grace smiled in her sleep, as if she could hear her mother's words even in dreams. And maybe she could. Maybe the victory lived in both of them now, mother and daughter bonded by trauma and strengthened by survival. Maia straightened up and walked to the window. The city sparkled below millions of lives unfolding in apartments and offices and streets. Most of them would never know what had happened this week. Most of them would never understand how close the Thorntons had come to winning. But some would know. The workers who had been cheated. The witnesses who had been silenced. The victims who had been told their stories didn't matter. They would know that finally, someone had fought back. And won. Maia's phone buzzed one last time. A message from Dolores Hawkins. "Can't sleep. Too much to process. But I wanted to say thank you, Ms. Richardson. Not just for saving me, for proving that all those years of keeping records weren't wasted, for showing the world that invisible people can bring down empires." Maia typed her response with tears in her eyes. "You showed them, Dolores. You showed them that truth doesn't expire, that justice doesn't forget, that every crime, no matter how carefully hidden, leaves traces that patient people can find." The response came back immediately. "We showed them together. And tomorrow we start building something better." Maia smiled. Tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow they would build. But tonight she would hold her daughter's hand and rest in the knowledge that the monsters had been defeated. The Thornton Empire was fallen. Justice had prevailed. And a new chapter was about to begin. 1 year later, Maia stood in front of her bathroom mirror, applying the final touches of her makeup with steady hands. The emerald earrings caught the light as she turned her head, examining her reflection. Tonight was the night she had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure for months. The Civil Rights Alliance Lifetime Achievement Gala. The same ballroom where Bradley Thornton had poured champagne on her daughter's face. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Marcus. "Car's downstairs. Dolores is already at the venue. Your mother has Grace ready. We'll be down in 5 minutes." She ended the call and walked to Grace's room. Her daughter, now 3 years old, was spinning in circles, delighted by the way her tiny dress flared out around her. "Mama, look, I'm a princess." Maia knelt down and straightened Grace's flower headband. The same style she had worn that terrible night, now reclaimed. Now a symbol of survival instead of trauma. "You are a princess, baby girl. The bravest princess I know. Are we going to the fancy party?" "Yes, we are." "Will there be mean people there?" The question hit Maia in the chest. Even at 3, Grace remembered something. Maybe not the details, but the feeling. The fear. "No, baby." Maia cupped her daughter's face in her hands. "Tonight, there will only be people who love us. People who are proud of us. People who want to celebrate how strong we are." Grace nodded seriously. "Okay, Mama. I'm ready." At 6:45 p.m., the black Tesla pulled up to the entrance of the Grand Manhattan Hotel. The same gilded doors, the same red carpet, the same photographers with their flashing cameras. But everything else had changed. "Ms. Richardson. Ms. Richardson." The shouts began the moment she stepped out of the car. Grace held tight to her hand, eyes wide at all the lights and noise. "Maia, over here." "Ms. Richardson, how does it feel to be back?" "Grace, can you give us a smile?" Maia paused on the carpet. Grace pressed against her leg and faced the cameras with a composure that had become her trademark. She didn't hurry. She didn't hide. She stood exactly where she was and let them see her. A black woman. A single mother. A CEO who had brought down an empire. Still standing. At 7:02 p.m., Maia entered the ballroom where everything had begun. The chandeliers still sparkled overhead. The marble floors still gleamed. The same orchestra played softly in the corner. But the faces that turned toward her now wore expressions of admiration, not contempt, respect, not mockery. And then the applause began. It started near the entrance, rippling outward like waves from a stone dropped in water. One person clapping. Then 10. Then 100. Then the entire room was on its feet, the sound building and building until it seemed to shake the walls. Grace tugged at her mother's hand. "Mama, why are they clapping?" "Because we did something brave, baby, and they want to say thank you." "Oh." Grace considered this. "Should I wave?" "If you want to." Grace raised her tiny hand and waved at the crowd. The applause somehow grew even louder. Dolores Hawkins was waiting near the stage, elegant in deep purple silk. She embraced Maia tightly, her eyes bright with emotion. "Can you believe this?" Dolores whispered. "1 year ago they were laughing at you. Now they're giving you a standing ovation. They're celebrating all of us, Dolores, not just me." "No." Dolores shook her head firmly. "They're celebrating you. I just kept records. You were the one brave enough to use them." At 7:15 p.m., the Civil Rights Alliance chairman took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight for our annual Lifetime Achievement Gala." His voice carried across the now silent room. This year's honoree needs no introduction, but she deserves one anyway. He paused, looking out at the crowd. 1 year ago, in this very room, a 15-year-old boy poured champagne on a 2-year-old child. His parents laughed. Their friends laughed. They thought they were untouchable. They thought their money and power meant they could humiliate anyone without consequence. Maia felt Grace squeeze her hand tighter. They were wrong. The screen behind him lit up with footage from that night, the wine arcing through the air, Grace's scream, the Thorntons' laughter. Then Maia's calm walk to the stage. Her measured words, her quiet devastation of everything they had built. What followed, the chairman continued, was one of the most remarkable stories in American corporate history. A single mother fighting against a dynasty that had corrupted politicians, judges, and business leaders for 3 generations. A 72-year-old housekeeper revealing 35 years of documented evidence. Whistleblowers stepping forward, federal agents moving in, and ultimately, justice being served. The screen showed new footage now. Victor Thornton's arrest, Cynthia's perp walk, the dissolution of Thornton Energy, the creation of the Grace Hawkins Foundation. The Thornton family is now serving a combined sentence of over 60 years in federal prison. Their company has been restructured under ethical leadership. Their victims have been compensated from recovered assets totaling over $300 million. And the foundation that bears both names, Grace and Hawkins, has already helped over 10,000 workers claim their rights. The applause erupted again. But statistics don't tell the whole story. What Maia Richardson showed us is that courage matters. That truth can defeat lies no matter how expensive those lies might be. That no one, no matter how wealthy or connected, is above accountability. He turned toward where Maia sat. "Ladies and gentlemen, it is my profound honor to present the Civil Rights Alliance Lifetime Achievement Award to Maia Richardson." At 7:31 p.m., Maia walked to the stage. Grace wanted to come with her, and Maia let her. Mother and daughter climbed the stairs together. Grace's tiny hand in hers, facing the standing ovation as a team. The trophy was crystal heavy in her hands. But the weight she felt most was the one she had carried for a year. The weight of responsibility. The weight of expectation. The weight of representing everyone who had ever been told they didn't belong. She approached the microphone, Grace standing beside her, and looked out at the sea of faces. 1 year ago, she began, her voice steady and clear. I walked into this room hoping to close a business deal. I walked out with champagne dripping from my hair and my daughter screaming in my arms. Silence. Complete and total silence. In the minutes and hours and days that followed, I made a choice. I could have retreated. I could have settled quietly. I could have protected my company and my reputation and let the Thorntons continue doing what they had done for generations. She looked down at Grace, who was watching her with complete trust. But I had a daughter who would grow up in this world, a daughter who deserved to know that wrong actions have consequences no matter who commits them, a daughter who needed to see that her mother would fight for her even when the fight seemed impossible. Maia lifted her gaze back to the crowd. So I fought. Not alone. Never alone. I fought alongside Dolores Hawkins, who spent 35 years documenting crimes she was told to ignore. I fought alongside Margaret Chen, who risked everything to provide evidence of financial fraud. I fought alongside Rosa Martinez, who helped rescue Dolores when she was kidnapped. I fought alongside FBI agents and journalists and lawyers who believed that truth still mattered. She paused, feeling the emotion rising in her chest. And I fought alongside every person in this room who has ever been told they don't belong. Every person who has been laughed at, dismissed, underestimated. Every person who has been made to feel small by those who mistake wealth for worth. The applause began again, but Maia raised her hand for silence. I want to share something I haven't spoken about publicly before. The room went still. There was a night during the worst of the Thornton counterattack when I broke down completely. My accounts were frozen. My board was wavering. My home had been vandalized with racial slurs, and I sat alone in my panic room and cried until I couldn't breathe. She felt Grace tugging at her dress. "It's okay, Mama." The words from her 3-year-old nearly undid her. My daughter just said it's okay. And she's right. It is okay. It's okay to break down. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to have moments where the fight seems too big and the enemies seem too powerful, and you don't know how you're going to survive until morning. She looked directly at the cameras she knew were broadcasting to millions. What matters is getting back up. What matters is finding your people, the ones who will fight alongside you, and standing together, even when standing alone seems impossible. What matters is refusing to let the powerful convince you that your pain doesn't matter, that your voice doesn't count, that your story isn't worth telling. At 7:45 p.m., Maia introduced the next speaker. There's someone who deserves this microphone more than I do. Someone who kept records in silence for 3.5 decades. Someone who could have sold those records for millions, but chose instead to wait for the right moment to serve justice. Please welcome the co-director of the Grace Hawkins Foundation, Mrs. Dolores Hawkins. The applause as Dolores took the stage was deafening. The elderly woman moved slowly, but with absolute dignity. Her silver hair gleamed under the lights. Her purple gown swept the floor. And her eyes, when she reached the microphone, held the quiet fire of someone who had finally been heard. For 35 years. Dolores began, her voice soft but steady. I cleaned their bathrooms. I washed their dishes. I made their beds. And I wrote down every cruel thing they said, every person they hurt, every dollar they stole. She looked out at the crowd. They never saw me. Not really. To them I was furniture, background, something to be ignored and talked over. They said things in front of me they would never have said if they thought I mattered. Her hands gripped the podium. But I did matter. My eyes mattered. My ears mattered. My memory mattered. And when the time came, my records mattered too. She turned to look at Maia. Ms. Richardson gave me something I had given up hoping for. She gave me a voice. She gave me a platform. She gave me proof that all those years of silent documentation weren't wasted. Dolores's voice cracked. She made an invisible woman visible. The applause came again, and this time Dolores let it wash over her. The Grace Hawkins Foundation isn't just about fighting corporate crime. It's about saying that every person matters, every worker, every domestic employee, every janitor and housekeeper and security guard, every invisible person who keeps the world running while the powerful take credit. She straightened her spine. We see you, we hear you, and we will fight for you. At 8:03 p.m., the Foundation's achievements were displayed on the massive screen. 10,000 workers assisted in the past year. 347 whistleblowers protected. 112 corporations investigated based on evidence gathered through Foundation resources. 43 executives indicted. $200 million recovered for victims of wage theft and discrimination. The numbers were staggering. But what followed was more powerful still. A video compilation played showing face after face of people the Foundation had helped. A warehouse worker who had been fired for reporting safety violations. They told me I'd never work again. The Foundation got me my job back and my back pay. A domestic employee who had been sexually harassed for years. I was afraid to speak up, but Dolores Hawkins told me my story mattered. Now the man who hurt me is in prison. a young accountant who had discovered fraud at her company. They threatened my family. They tried to destroy my career. The foundation gave me lawyers, gave me protection, gave me the courage to testify. Face after face, story after story, lives changed because two women had refused to stay silent. At 8:20 p.m., the surprise announcement came. The chairman returned to the stage with an expression of barely contained excitement. Before we continue with this evening's celebrations, I have an announcement that was kept secret even from our honoree. He turned to smile at Maia. Ms. Richardson, you might want to sit down for this. Maia felt her heart rate spike. She had learned to distrust surprises. Earlier today, the United States Congress passed the Domestic Worker Protection Act, also known as the Hawkins-Richardson Bill. This legislation, directly inspired by the evidence gathered by Dolores Hawkins and the advocacy of Maia Richardson, will provide unprecedented protections for domestic workers across America. The room erupted. Maia's hand flew to her mouth. Dolores grabbed her arm for support. The bill mandates minimum wage requirements for domestic workers, creates reporting mechanisms for abuse, establishes federal protections for whistleblowers in private households, and provides funding for organizations that assist victims of household employment abuse. The chairman's voice rose over the applause. This is the most significant legislation for domestic workers in American history, and it carries the names of the two women who made it possible. Maia turned to Dolores, tears streaming down both their faces. They embraced on stage, holding each other while the room thundered around them. "We did it," Dolores whispered. "We actually did it." "You did it," Maia replied. 35 years of records. This law exists because you never stopped believing the truth mattered. At 8:35 p.m., the evening took an unexpected turn. A young man approached the stage during a break in proceedings. Security moved to intercept him, but something about his face made Maia hold up her hand. She recognized him. Bradley Thornton, now 16, taller, thinner, with eyes that held none of the cruelty she remembered. "Please," he said, his voice barely audible. "I just want to say something. Then I'll leave." The room had gone silent, tension crackling in the air. Dolores moved protectively closer to Grace. "Let him speak," Maia said quietly. Bradley approached the stage but didn't climb it. He stood at ground level looking up at the woman and child he had hurt a year ago. "Ms. Richardson, I know I don't deserve your time. I know nothing I say can undo what I did. But I've spent the past year in therapy learning about who I was and why I became that person." His voice broke. "I was taught that cruelty was strength. I was taught that hurting people who couldn't fight back was funny. I was taught that money made me better than everyone else." He wiped his eyes with a trembling hand. "I was wrong. My parents were wrong. Everything I believed was wrong. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to make up for it." Grace tugged at her mother's dress. "Mama, who is that?" Maia knelt down to her daughter's level. "That's someone who made a very bad mistake when he was young. Now he's trying to do better." "Is he sorry?" "I think he is, baby." Grace looked at Bradley for a long moment. Then she did something that stunned everyone in the room. She walked to the edge of the stage and looked down at him. "I don't remember you," she said in her clear 3-year-old voice. "But Mama says you hurt me. Did you?" Bradley's face crumpled. "Yes, I did. And I'm so sorry." Grace considered this. "My mama says sorry means you try to be better. Are you going to try? Every day, for the rest of my life?" Grace nodded seriously. Then she turned and walked back to her mother. "He's sorry, Mama. I think he means it." The room was absolutely silent. Maia looked at Bradley, at the broken teenager standing below her, so different from the arrogant bully who had poured champagne on her baby. "Bradley," her voice carried across the room, "I can't forgive you for what you did. That's not something I'm capable of right now, and I'm not sure I ever will be." He nodded, accepting this. But I hope your therapy works. I hope you become someone your parents never imagined you could be. I hope you use your life to undo some of the damage your family caused." She paused. "And I hope someday you find peace, not because you deserve it, but because carrying hatred forever destroys the person carrying it more than the person it's aimed at." Bradley wiped his face. "Thank you. That's more than I deserved." He turned and walked away, disappearing through a side exit. At 9:07 p.m. Maia gave her final remarks. "Tonight has been full of surprises. Awards I didn't expect, legislation I hadn't dared hope for, and a conversation I never imagined having." She looked out at the crowd, at the faces of supporters and allies and former skeptics now converted. "A year ago, I stood on this spot covered in champagne, holding my screaming daughter, surrounded by people who thought my humiliation was entertainment." She let the memory hang in the air. "Tonight I stand on this spot in a gown I chose myself, holding the hand of a daughter who knows she is loved, surrounded by people who fought alongside me for justice." Grace tugged at her hand. "Mama, you're doing good." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "Thank you, baby." Maia smiled down at her daughter. "This is the real achievement, not the award, not the legislation, not the billions of dollars in partnerships, or the criminals in prison, or the foundation we built." She lifted her gaze. "The real achievement is that Grace will grow up in a world slightly more just than the one I grew up in. She will know that her mother fought for her, that other people fought for her, that when evil comes dressed in expensive suits, with famous names and powerful connections, good people will stand up and say no." Her voice strengthened. "That is what we celebrate tonight. Not my courage, or Dolores's records, or any individual act of defiance. We celebrate the simple revolutionary truth that ordinary people can change extraordinary things when they refuse to accept injustice." She held up the crystal trophy. "This award isn't for me. It's for every person who has ever been told to stay quiet. Every person who has ever been laughed at for standing up. Every person who has looked at a system designed to crush them and said, 'No, not today, not ever.'" The applause began again, but Maia continued. "The Thorntons thought they could silence us. They thought their money would buy our compliance, and their connections would bury our truth. They thought that because they had always won before, they would always win." She shook her head slowly. "They forgot that empires fall, that truth survives, that every act of cruelty is remembered by someone, documented by someone, waiting for the day when justice finally arrives." She looked at Dolores. "They forgot that the help was watching." At 9:20 p.m. the gala concluded with a final tribute. A choir took the stage and began singing. The words filled the ballroom, voices rising in harmony, a celebration of survival and justice and hope. Maia sat with Grace in her lap, Dolores beside her, surrounded by the people who had fought alongside her. Marcus, Vivian, Rosa, Margaret Chen. The FBI agents who had believed her. The journalists who had told her story. The workers whose lives the foundation had changed. Her mother sat nearby, tears streaming down her face, pride radiating from every pore. "Your father would have loved this," Patricia whispered. "He always said you would change the world." "I didn't change it alone." "No, but you started it. You lit the match." Grace was falling asleep against Maia's chest, exhausted by the excitement. Her flower headband had slipped sideways. Her tiny hand clutched her mother's finger. So small, so innocent, so unaware of what her pain had started. At 9:45 p.m. Maia carried Grace out through the same gilded doors she had fled through a year ago, but this time she wasn't fleeing. She was leaving in triumph. Photographers still lined the carpet. Cameras still flashed. Questions were still shouted. "Ms. Richardson, what's next for the foundation?" "Maia, do you have any message for other women facing corporate intimidation?" "Ms. Richardson, how does it feel to be back in this ballroom?" Maia stopped at the edge of the carpet and turned to face them one last time. "How does it feel?" She repeated the question, considering it. It feels like closure, like proof that the story doesn't end with the villain laughing, like evidence that every parent can show their children when they ask if doing the right thing really matters. She shifted Grace's sleeping weight in her arms. To every woman facing intimidation, every worker being silenced, every person being told their truth doesn't matter, I have one message. Don't give up. Don't stay quiet. Don't let them convince you that your voice is too small to be heard. Her eyes swept across the cameras. Find your Dolores. Find your evidence. Find your allies. And then stand up and speak your truth no matter how powerful the people trying to silence you. She smiled, and it was the smile of a woman who had walked through fire and emerged stronger. The Thorntons had billions of dollars. They had politicians and judges in their pockets. They had 3 generations of power and connections. And they lost everything because one woman refused to let them pour champagne on her baby without consequence. Her voice rose. Power is not permanent. Money is not armor. And justice, however long delayed, always arrives. She turned and walked to her waiting car, her daughter in her arms, her head held high. At 10:08 p.m., the Tesla pulled away from the hotel. Grace was still sleeping. Patricia sat beside them, holding her granddaughter's hand. The city lights blurred past the windows as they drove home. Maia's phone buzzed with a message from Dolores. I'm still in shock about the legislation. We changed federal law, Maia. Federal law. Maia typed her response with one hand while supporting Grace with the other. You changed it. 35 years of records. You were the foundation everything else was built on. The response came immediately. We changed it together, and tomorrow we keep building. Maia smiled and put her phone away. Tomorrow there would be more work, more cases to support, more whistleblowers to protect, more corporations to hold accountable. The fight for justice never ended, it simply evolved. But tonight was for rest. For gratitude. For holding her daughter close and breathing in the reality of everything they had survived and everything they had accomplished. At 10:30 p.m., they arrived home. Not the safe house they had hidden in during the crisis. Their real home. The apartment Maia had worked 18-hour days to afford. The walls she had painted herself. The rooms filled with memories of Grace's first steps, first words, first everything. Patricia helped her carry Grace to bed. The little girl stirred as Maia laid her down, her eyes fluttering open briefly. Mama. Yes, baby. Did we win? Maia stroked her daughter's hair, feeling the soft curls beneath her fingers. Yes, baby. We won. Good. Grace's eyes closed again. The mean people were wrong. Yes, they were. We're strong. The strongest. Grace smiled in her sleep and rolled over, clutching her stuffed elephant. Maia stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching her daughter breathe, feeling the weight of the past year finally lifting from her shoulders. At 11 p.m., she stood alone at her living room window. The city sparkled below millions of stories unfolding in the darkness. Somewhere out there, workers were filing complaints with newfound courage. Somewhere, domestic employees were documenting mistreatment inspired by Dolores's example. Somewhere, women were standing up to powerful men and refusing to be silenced. The ripples from one night were still spreading. 1 year ago, a 15-year-old boy had poured champagne on her daughter's face. His parents had laughed. Their friends had applauded. They had thought they were untouchable. Now, Victor and Cynthia Thornton were in federal prison. Their empire dismantled their name, synonymous with corruption and cruelty. Now, Dolores Hawkins was celebrated as a hero, her decades of documentation changing federal law. Now, the Grace Hawkins Foundation was protecting thousands of workers across America. Now, Maia Richardson stood in her own home, her daughter safe, her company thriving, her legacy secure. She had been broken and had rebuilt herself. She had been threatened and had refused to yield. She had been underestimated and had proven them all wrong. Her phone buzzed one final time. A message from an unknown number. Ms. Richardson, you don't know me, but I'm a housekeeper for a wealthy family in Boston. I've been documenting their abuse for 7 years, and your story gave me the courage to finally come forward. Thank you for showing me that invisible people can bring down empires. Tomorrow, I'm calling the foundation." Maia read the message 3 times. Then she typed her response. "We'll be waiting. You're not invisible anymore. None of us are." She put down her phone and looked out at the city one last time. The fight continued. The work continued. The mission continued. But tonight, victory was complete. The Thornton Empire was fallen. The perpetrators were imprisoned. The victims were compensated. The laws were changed. The foundation was thriving. The daughter was safe. And Maia Richardson, the woman who had refused to break, stood triumphant in the place where she belonged. Not because of her wealth or her power or her connections, because she had chosen to fight when fighting seemed impossible. Because she had found allies who believed in justice. Because she had proven once and for all that no amount of money can silence the truth. The chandeliers of the Thornton ballroom would sparkle for other galas, other celebrations, other moments of wealth and privilege. But they would never again see a family laugh while a child cried. They would never again witness cruelty without consequence. The story that began with champagne and tears ended with triumph and justice. And the woman at the center of it all stood at her window, watching the city lights, knowing that she had changed something permanent. Not just for her daughter, not just for Dolores, not just for the thousands of workers the foundation would help. For everyone who had ever been told they didn't matter. They mattered. They had always mattered. And now finally the world knew it too. Maia Richardson smiled, turned off the lights, and went to sleep beside her daughter. Tomorrow would bring new battles. But tonight, the war was won. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like to support my channel and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. On the screen, I've picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.